Looking for love in the Philippines? 5 mistakes that will ruin your life. So beware. Welcome back to the Philippines Project. If you're looking for love in the Philippines, this is a must watch video for you. So I want you to pay attention closely and I want you to watch it till the end because if you don't, you might miss something that's going to really get you into trouble if you don't watch it all the way through. Today I'm going to reveal the 5 big mistakes that could ruin your quest for a real relationship in the Philippines. So let's get started. Mistake number 1, ignoring the cultural differences. If you've never been here, you really need to do a deep dive into the local culture here. I'm talking about culture shock. Unless you grew up here, you're probably going to not know really how to deal with life here in the Philippines and the cultural differences that are here that you will face. I would recommend you get a book. You can go to the bookstore and get a book called Culture Shock Philippines. It'll give you an inside look into the cultural differences that you're going to face. We have a culture in the West that a lot of people don't really understand at all. The same will be the case in the Philippines if you don't do your research before you come. And it may take you years to really understand Filipino culture. I know it has for me. I'll give you one quick story that'll explain a little bit about Filipino culture. They have this concept. It's called tingi tingi, and that's translated in my American mind, that's called little by little. You'll go to a sari-sari store, you'll go to a local place that sells anything, and you'll have individual shampoo, you'll have individual toothpaste, you'll have individual uh, conditioner, and they'll be in a little what they call a sachet or just a small foil type, plastic type envelope. You can buy coffee like that, you can buy anything like that. Now, imagine you're looking at this is the story. Imagine you're looking at a group of young men and they're all standing out in front of the store. Well, one man goes up, one young guy goes up, and he goes to the counter and a lot of times they hang out outside of sari-sari stores. He goes up and he gets one cigarette. And he goes back and he smokes a cigarette. And I don't know how much it costs, but it costs something, right? So he enjoys his cigarette and he talks to his friends for a while. Then maybe half hour later he goes back and he gets another cigarette and he smokes it. And then he continues on with his friend. Maybe there are 2 or 3 hours, maybe he buys and smokes 5 cigarettes. And they're more expensive per cigarette than they are if you buy a whole pack. So, in my way of thinking, I would say, why don't you just buy a whole pack of cigarettes? They'll be cheaper, and that way you'll save money and you'll have more. Well, that makes sense to the Western mind. Why not? We buy in bulk. We go to Sam's Club, we buy things in bulk. But what we don't understand sometimes, and about specifically about Filipino culture, if that young man buys a pack of cigarettes, first of all, he might not have the money to do that. Second of all, if he buys the whole pack, then all of his friends that smoke will feel free to say, hey, can I get a cigarette from you? And then he will be obligated by Filipino culture to hand out cigarettes to all those young men that are his friends. Otherwise, he's going to be the bad guy. He's going to be the jerk if he doesn't offer that. So, tingi tingi is one by one or just a little bit at a time. He smokes that one cigarette. He actually saves himself money because he doesn't have to give it all out. And he can always say, oh, walang pera. He doesn't have any more money if they ask him to buy. So, that's just one little illustration, and one of my favorite sayings of all time is just because you don't know the reason doesn't mean that there isn't one. And there are so many things that us from the West will not understand about Filipino culture. And I hope you don't find yourself trying to thrust our culture on the people of the Philippines when you get here. You're just going to end up tired, angry, and frustrated. And it's going to be a complete waste of time. It's like trying to stick a square peg in a round hole. It's not going to work, and they're not going to change, nor should they. It's their culture, it's their country. It is essential to embrace their local customs, their local differences, and you can build a strong relationship with your Filipina if you decide to embrace their culture instead of constantly fighting against it. That's a big mistake that you can make in building a relationship or trying to find love in the Philippines. So take time to learn about their culture, ask a lot of questions, be open minded, and definitely don't be a know it all. Don't be I call it an angry American. And you could go for the UK or you could go Australian, any Western country. Mistake number two, rushing into a relationship. Building a solid foundation takes time, and the Philippines is no different. And don't rush into a relationship just because you're excited or just because you're lonely. Take time to really get to know your partner because a real relationship really takes time to develop. Get to know your new partner and allow the relationship to develop over time. My next point may not sit well with a lot of people, but I would say be ready to pull the plug if you start seeing red flags. You're going to come over here and you're going to meet that person, and maybe you're lonely. Maybe you're just excited about, maybe it's a younger woman than you. Maybe she's more beautiful than maybe what you could get back home. And she's sweet and she's cuddly and she's just attractive. And you're going to get excited about having that person as your partner. But here's some red flags that you absolutely can't ignore. You ignore them at your peril. Number one, asking for too much money. My wife never asked me for any money. And I know a lot of you are married to Filipinas and you could say the same thing. But in almost every relationship, there's going to be some give and take. And you have to remember, you're the one most likely that's going to be on the more financially stable side of the relationship. Second red flag would be if she prioritizes her family over and above you all the time. Now, she is going to prioritize her family, but that doesn't mean that you guys are married. That doesn't mean that you should take second place to her family. If you find yourself in that situation, that's a definite red flag. Because I always remember, and I've said this on my channel before, when I got my divorce for the first time, I called my dad and told him about it. And he told me he wasn't surprised, number one, and he said, if two horses are hooked to one wagon and they pull in different directions, they're not going to get very far. And if your wife or girlfriend prioritizes her family over the top of you and is always asking for money, it's not going to work. Pull the trigger, get out of that relationship now. Just because Filipinos are sweet and they can talk sweet doesn't mean that they always have your best interests at heart. And you have to be a good judge of character. Another thing, all Filipinos are not created equal. Now you're going to see expats tell you can come here, you can finally find that person that you're looking for, and that's all true. And you stand a much better chance of finding a more traditional wife or girlfriend here than you would in any Western culture. I really believe that from the bottom of my heart. I've got 20 years experience with it, and I can say wholeheartedly that's true. But they're not all created equal, and some of them are after your money. So pull the trigger if you start to see these red flags. They will tell you who they are by their actions. Don't just listen to their words. Their actions will tell you actually what they're up to. And this goes for all relationships, whether it's here in the Philippines or dealing with your own children or any relationship in the West. One thing I want you to think about, if you've been through 3 or 4 marriages, 5 marriages, you can blame that all on the other person. But at some point in your life, you're going to have to take responsibility for the relationships that you get into. You're responsible for some of this. If it's always the other person, I think you need to take a look at your own relationship skills and do some research and some study on how to set boundaries and how to know if somebody's trying to scam you or somebody's just using you. Don't fall for those things. When you come to the Philippines, you can't always think with your heart or something else. You have to think with your head and your mind, and you have to make an intelligent decision. You have to set proper boundaries, and then you can build a relationship on a good foundation. Mistake number 3, neglecting family values. Family values are super important here. You're going to be part of a family if you develop a relationship with a Filipina. And that doesn't always mean that you're just handing out money left and right, but you will have to have a relationship with the family, because your partner's going to have a relationship with her family, because that's one of the greatest things that you love about her. That traditional values, the traditional family, and support that comes from the family. And part of those family values means you're probably going to be helping the family out from time to time. But remember this, when I was in business, and I owned 2 businesses, I kind of had a saying that I used to myself, and I kind of developed on my own because of situations. I'm very soft-hearted. I'm a very soft-hearted person. And I want to help people, and I feel for people. I'm very, very empathetic, probably too empathetic. But I finally came up with this one thing with my employees, this saying, and I would say just bluntly, you can't help people. And I really meant that, and I mean that. Sometimes you can't help people. People that will not help themselves won't be helped by a gift that you give them. And it's going to actually spoil the relationship between you and that person, because they're always going to feel that debt that you gave to them and they never paid back. And it's definitely a mistake to come over here and think you're going to be that white knight on a horse, come in, save that princess, that little Filipina, and take care of the family. Now you may do that, but you're going to spend a lot of money doing that, and it's going to get old before too long. Mark my words, you're going to be sorry about that decision. Having said all that, Filipino families are extremely family-oriented and close-knit. If you want your relationship to flourish, it's crucial to prioritize and respect your partner's family. Show genuine interest and engage with them to build a strong bond. Mistake number 4, trying to buy love. Now, I've already talked about that in the previous just a little bit, but I have some other thoughts I want to bring up. Money cannot buy true love. While it's important to be financially stable, it's not a guarantee for a successful relationship. Focus on building an emotional connection rather than showering your partner or their family with material possessions. Mistake number 5, disregarding communication. Effective communication is the backbone of any successful relationship. Always be open, honest, and respectful in your conversations. This will ensure that misgivings are resolved, and it will strengthen your emotional connection. There you have it. By avoiding these 5 mistakes, you'll be well on your way to having a happy, flourishing relationship with your new Filipina here in the Philippines, or if she decides to move back to the United States or UK, wherever you're from. I really want to thank you for watching the channel, and I would encourage you to go down and hit the subscribe button right now if you haven't subscribed. Go to my Facebook page at the Philippines Project on Facebook and like that page. And I try to give a few like insider things inside our life, just small clips, videos, and things. Just kind of give you an inside look on what goes on here in the Philippines and in our family in general. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell, so when the next video comes out, you'll be sure to see it. And I appreciate you watching the video, and I'll see you next time.